we are actually live now. So this your screen is not visible.
Yeah, is it now?
Yeah, it's visible now.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to wait for few more minutes for the viewers to come.
Okay.
Just 2-3 minutes we can give before we start. Oh, there are only 2 people actually live. I don't know why people are less.
We can always
Hmm.
transfer that if we can to another time. I know it's super last minute, but that would be fine. That would be possible for me. Just say that is an option in case.
Yeah, but it's okay, I guess, because anyway, after the webinar, we are going to post the video here and also on STEM Cognito. So, yeah, and we will definitely share the link also. So, interested people can always watch the video later. If it's not possible for them to see now and post, they can also email us the questions they have. So, yeah, so already 4 people are watching. So, I guess we will start slowly. So, let the people join in between. So, if you're all ready, we can start. So I'll just start with the introduction. Then okay, we will start now then. So good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to the chapter 3 of the Bio Battalion webinar series. Today we have with us is a really distinguished personality who is a scientist, science writer, and communicator, and at the same time a professional and competitive diver and sailor. It is an absolute delight to all of us at Bio Battalion to host Dr. Thais Langer, the founder of the Science Writer Space, as our speaker for the 3rd chapter of Bio Battalion webinar series. So before I hand over to Thais, let me take the liberty to speak a few words about her. Dr. Thais Langer is a creative scientist with a diverse and international career. She worked in cancer and immunology research and presented her work in more than 11 conferences around Europe. Dr. Langer holds a bachelor's degree in applied sciences from RMIT, Australia, a master's degree in molecular biology from Umeå University, Sweden, and a PhD in molecular medicine from Hanover Medical School, Germany. After her PhD, she worked as a postdoc in a preclinical project developing CRISPR-Cas9-based immunotherapies for cancer. She is passionate about education and reliable information and firmly believes there is no use in learning when not shared. Thus, after living and working in more than 6 countries, she finally decided to share her scientific know-how and passion for science communication by creating Science Writer Space. Science Writer Space aims to bring science closer to society in an accurate, creative, and inspiring way. Outside work, she competes in sailing and as a professional diver. She sailed several international competitions, including 2 world championships and some exclusive regattas. She also worked as a dive master for environmental and educational projects in Thailand and UAE. With this, let me invite Dr. Thais Langer to this event. Welcome, Dr. Langer. So just a heads up, audience will post their science and sailing questions in the comment box, and we will moderate it at the end of the presentation. So yeah, if you're ready, we can slowly start.
Great. So hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I was super happy with the invitation. I really enjoyed the project Bio Battalion. Honestly, I looked at their website, I looked at what they're doing, and it's really nice. I hope we have more initiatives like that in the future. So I would talk to you a little bit of how to navigate a scientific career. I like to give a very personal approach to how I dealt with that. And I like to mix a lot of personal details because I do think that career and life are absolutely intertwined, right? We cannot separate one from another. So any questions afterwards, you're free to ask me or send me an email at the end. We had some technical issues with sharing the screen here, so I'm going to have to do this presentation like this. So I just hope you bear with me a little bit. So I just give you a preview of what I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to share with you my background. And then I'm going to go into science communication. What is science communication and why? Why is it a growing field and why is it so important? And how to get into science communication and why as well. I'd say that the why comes before the how. You know, you need to know why you want to get into it before you find a way to get into it, and whether that is for you or not. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about life and career choices. So as was mentioned before in my lovely introduction, I have a few animations here, so I have to take it out. I come from Brazil. I was born and raised in Brazil, and my city lies by a huge, huge lake. So I was raised by the water with a lot of nature and a lot of wind and a lot of boats around me. So, of course, I ended up growing up sailing. And during my teenager years, I started competing in sailing. So I was always a lot into that sport and into water sports in general. And one thing you learn as a sailor at a very young age is that you cannot choose the weather, but you can always adjust your sails. So the weather will be there no matter what, you know, and that goes for life as well. Opportunities come and go, and you adjust accordingly, and you see the best you can get out of each weather or each wind, right, that you have to face. I started my journey, my scientific journey, it started in veterinary medicine school. And I was passionate about that. So I stayed in veterinary medicine school for 4 years. And during that time, my first contact with science communication was because I was an anatomy teaching assistant. And then I started building skeletons and pieces for the Museum of Natural History of my university back home. And I got involved in several collaborative projects at the time, and I got very, very passionate about it. I thought it was so cool that I could study in vet school, be a teaching assistant, and yet collaborate with the museum. So bringing whatever we knew back to the public, or whoever was curious to learn about that. I worked in many projects. That penguin on the top, it's a penguin. I built it myself, and then I joined also a collaboration with the biology department to build a whale skeleton. That was the biggest challenge we had. It was incredibly nice. But my family faced several financial issues at the time, and I had to become financially independent at a very early age in my life. So that forced me to drop vet school, which at that time I was like, okay, I'll drop it for a couple of years, and I come back and graduate, no problem, right? Well, that didn't happen, as you already know, but I went into other jobs. I was a waitress. I sold water filters. I worked as a hotel receptionist. And because I had to work during the day, then I was like, okay, I like communication, so I'm going to study at night. So I was studying then social communication and digital media. And later on, I shifted into international marketing. I got a job at an advertising agency. I worked in advertising for 1.5 years. And then I was like, no, that's really not it. I miss science. I want to go back to science somehow. I would like to go back to vet school. But I couldn't afford it. So then, creativity took place. And then I decided to take a job to apply to become a flight attendant. So I moved to Dubai. I applied for the job still in Brazil. I got the job and I moved to Dubai. That's me here on the corner and the Zurich airport. This picture was taken by a photographer. It was a really nice picture. And so I worked with as a flight attendant for 4 years. When I joined the company in Dubai, I finally could afford to study again, but I didn't have the time. So how can I put that together? I couldn't go back to veterinary school because veterinary school is a full-time study and I couldn't do that. So I started studying applied sciences in Australia. I was doing everything online, all the theory by myself, all the exams at the British Council in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. And I was taking vacation from work to do the practical laboratory work at RMIT in Melbourne in Australia. So basically for 3 years, I didn't really have a vacation, and I had a very organized schedule and a focus. And then I did a double major. I mean, like I didn't have time enough, but I wanted to do a double major. So in the end, I did applied sciences with a double major in biotechnology and biosciences. So I graduated at RMIT in 2011. And I thought, great, now I want to go back to the water. Maybe I can work with marine sciences, right? Or something like that. So I moved to Thailand, and then I became a dive master. And I was working with environmental and educational and marine resource management projects in Thailand, with building and maintaining artificial coral reefs and teaching other divers how to participate in our projects. It was an incredible year. But then I thought, okay, I want to do a master's degree. Maybe if I go into molecular biology, I can then go in the future for marine molecular biology. That would be great. So I moved to Sweden, and I did 2 years master's degree in molecular biology. Of course, I didn't end up back in marine molecular biology, as you already know. So I was then, in the end, I did my project at a medical department at a university, and I stayed there to work as a research assistant after that. So I worked for a couple of years as a research assistant at Umeå University, which was great for me. I got a lot of laboratory techniques under my belt. So I learned all kinds of techniques you can imagine. I worked in vivo, I worked ex vivo, I worked in vitro. So I had a lot of experience. And I thought the only way to go was a PhD. You know, when you are in research and when you are in academia, you don't really get in touch with the options outside, right? You kind of go with the flow a little bit. So I think that's more or less what I did. So I got a PhD position at Hanover Medical School. So I moved to Germany. I worked in immunology, transplantation immunology. I loved my PhD project, which is something very important for whoever is thinking about doing a PhD. And then at the end of my PhD, then I was pretty lost, to be honest. I was like, okay, what do I do with all that? Where can I go? You know, and so I took a break. I created a blog, I created a website, because I always had a wish to go to science communication. I was the one always reviewing abstracts and writing material from the lab, teaching my students on science communication, presentations, and so on. So I thought, what is out there that I could do with that? So I explored it for a while, but I was afraid, to be honest, to put my website out there and to start. And I always thought I needed to learn more. I needed to get more experience. So then I was offered a postdoc position at Hanover Medical School as well, and I took it. It was a very nice project. It was CRISPR engineering for developing immunotherapies for cancer. So it was very interesting. So I took it. But after a few months again, I was like, yeah, that's not it. It's amazing. I love the lab and I love science, but I really wanted to develop something else. I really wanted to use my communicative skills, and the experience I gained during so long in my career to become more independent, to do something else. So I finally, yeah, that's because I'm not on the presentation, so I click enter, so sorry. I finally put my website out there. So I created Science Writer Space. I honestly, when I started creating a blog and a website, I had no idea what a plugin was. That is really reality, okay? That was 2 years ago. And I learned everything by myself. I sat down, I was like, okay, how do you create a website? Literally Googling, how do you create a website? I learned about design, I learned about language, I learned about searching engine optimization, I learned about keywords, I learned about marketing and so on. And I created my website, I created my Science Writer Space name, my domain, and I put it out there. And as to start as a science and medical freelance writer. And I did it again. And What Science Writer Space focus on is basically to bring science closer to society, which I always thought there was a huge gap. I see with my family and my friends, nobody really knows what I do or has no idea what I do, even though I try to explain it. So I find this huge distance between research, biomedical research and academia to society. And I always had the wish to straighten that distance, to shorten that distance. And so I created Science Writer Space, and I develop evidence-based content through Science Writer Space, 2 blogs and websites, and whoever wants to also review evidence-based content or fact check. So I also do fact checking of science related content. And I also provide science communication workshops, be that for journalists or healthcare practitioners. I last year even had a workshop with physiotherapists and physical educators because they wanted to learn how to properly read a scientific article, how it works, how to actually judge whether a study is good or bad, how they can apply these studies, how they can do their own research. So basically bringing what scientific peer-reviewed articles to the people that work in health and work with other people, in the medical or health fields. So, but what is, right? We're going to get into what is and why science communication. This review from 2019, I strongly recommend for whoever is interested in learning more about what science communication is, how it works, does it work, right? It's a good question. So this review talks a lot about the importance of understanding science communication. And if we work in science, the importance of us knowing whether what we do and what we communicate actually gets the message across, right? Whether the way we communicate gets our message across. So, but why science communication? So science communication educates and informs. It influences opinion. It drives behavior change. It generates political support or not, as we've been saying lately, and enhance democratic legitimacy of funding systems. It basically also fights back fake news, right? That we see sadly spreading in a very harmful way throughout society. So basically brings science closer to society, and it builds public trust. And I cannot emphasize enough on the importance of building public trust. I think we all seen the consequences of that in this recent pandemic and how much disagreement it brought and how much fear it brought. People are afraid, and they're afraid because they don't understand, and that is acceptable. We are all afraid of what we don't understand, and we lose the power over our own health and life decisions. So it's incredibly important that we develop good ways of science communication, effective ways of science communication. So according to that paper and that review that I brought to you there, science communication is mainly divided into 2 paradigms, which is the dissemination and the public participation. The dissemination goes through works via a formal education, like schools and so on, like reviewing national curricula for schools, right? Teaching science at school. Also via mass media. So via TV shows or documentaries, popular science books, science magazines, and so on. So it goes one way, the dissemination goes from the people that know science towards the people that want to learn about science. The public participations goes both ways. So it's really the participation of the public with the science development, with scientific data generation and so on. So you have public hearings, you have science shops, right, where people basically defines the demand, right? We have scenario workshops, and we have citizen science projects. And I will talk about the citizen science project a little bit in more detail because I worked with that in the past as well. So one example of science communication, dissemination, for instance, on science communication, it's happening now here in Germany. For example, the Wissenschaft in Berlin 2021. And I've been there last week, about 3 weeks ago. It's really nice. It goes all over town with different expositions about different science fields and different topics, discussing different things about science. And the project basically states that the corona pandemic and the climate debate are particularly dominating in current events, right? Particularly dominating current events. We all know this. Everybody's talking about climate change, or talking about what to do with the pandemic, how to handle it. People are lost. And so this project basically tells the story of research, knowledge, and how the citizens of this place live together in the capital, and how all this is connected to the research that is done around this capital. So it brings all the research that is being done around the universities of that, or in Berlin, and institutions and so on together, then explains to the public why are they important, how they work. So it brings the community and the research together in an interactive and informative way. And tells them about the latest approaches and innovative solutions and so on, and how each individual benefits from all of these research. And that is very important for people to understand how it works, right? These are pictures that I took from that exposition, and they bring very how do you say, important topics like how political science. They talk about the climate research and how it confronts the public, how actually scientists are involved in climate research, and they all are often accused of ideological bias and manipulating political opinion. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but how is all that connected? How does that work? How people can understand that, or be able to judge when that is going on and that is not going on, right? That is a very complex matter. And that is the role of scientific communication as well, to bring that to the public. And then I also worked with a public participation, also paradigm, which is the citizen scientist project, for instance. I worked with that for many years throughout the Reef Check Foundation, which is based in California, but works all over the world. And they have this huge project, which is Dive Against the Breeze. So basically, I would teach people how they could contribute, how the project worked, and also gather volunteers to work with us and collect data. So basically, the study goes into the impact of diving tourism on local coral reefs, and what kind of debris we find the most when we are cleaning and analyzing different reefs around the world. So this little red here is just to show that I was there, and I was the group leader for a while for this project there in Thailand, in Koh Tao, and it was incredible to work with people from all over the world collecting data for this project. And here you can see, to have an idea of the size of this project. So in 2020, they published this data on the seafloor debris at Science Direct. And this data is used to advance critical marine research projects all over the world. Here is where they collected all the data, all the locations, exactly the data they collected in each locations. And here, the pink one here is basically plastic. So this graph shows different types of debris. So we can have an idea of what is the main source of debris on the oceans all over the world, and also per location. So this is all done by volunteers, by people getting involved into how science works, into collecting data, and getting them also motivated to understand and to do something, to feel that they participate. So going further now into why science communication, I want to now talk a little bit about the things we read in science, like scientific articles, peer-reviewed scientific articles, for example. And this one, published on eLife, you can find this. I really recommend reading this one. It did this analysis of more than 709,000 abstracts published between 1881 and 2015. from 123 different scientific articles analyzing the readability of scientific texts. And it's incredible how it got worse, I'd say. I mean, readability really decreased over the years, and that's what they show, even for scientists. So I don't know if it happened to you before, but to me it did. I often took a long time to understand a scientific journal, not only because the data was complex, but because the way it was presented, the way it was written, right? And some jargon, if I'm reading an article that is not from my field, there's so much jargon there that I often have to, Google it to find out what they're trying to say. And here it gives a very brief overview of why. So they show here the increase of science-specific jargon and common words, and a decrease of common words. So scientific common words, I mean science-specific words, and science jargon increases while common words decreases. They have it all, everything detailed on this paper. So basically what they see is how much readability of scientific articles decreased and became challenging even for specialists from different fields. So why is it important that scientists learn about science communication, right? Not only journalists or people from the media and so on. I think it should be part of basic scientific programs during master's and PhD degrees, because it increases accessibility of science results to other scientists, even to others, to specialists from different fields. We are so multidisciplinary nowadays. When we work in a lab, we work with chemists, we work with molecular biologists, we work with physicians. We all communicate in different ways. We all use different jargon. So it's important that we learn how to make it, what we know, more accessible even to other specialists. And to also increase reproducibility, that we know it's a big deal in science currently. Many of them, the majority of science published is not reproducible. And also to increase the dialogue of policymakers, how to communicate uncertainty, for instance. That for us is just another day in the office. Everything is uncertain. We're used to that. Society is not, and politics doesn't want that, and nobody wants uncertainty. And for us, we don't understand why. So the way we communicate comes across as like, well, they don't know anything. But the thing is that we just have different ways of communicating, and that is important to understand when dialoguing with policymakers, for instance. For the public, for example, to reach out to social media and science blogs. These are so incredibly important. Like Sara was saying on the other day when she had her talk at BioBattalion, how important science blogs are, and they are. If we had more people doing that, would be incredibly useful. So, sorry about that again. I want to go a little bit now into medical writing, and I know I'm jumping from one topic to another, but just to give you an overview of science communication is because it's such a broad term that involves so much stuff, and medical writing is also a broad term. So medical writing could be very basically divided into two main topics, main disciplines, which is regulatory writing that involves clinical trial reports and protocols and technical documents. It's not my field. That's not what I do, so I cannot really develop on that. And medical communication, and that goes into patient education. For instance, all these folders that you see from when you go to the doctor, talking about a new drug, talking about a new treatment, that is part of medical communication. Blogs and websites, magazines and news articles talking about health and medical treatments and so on, and also health and medical devices and therapies. So all that goes into medical writing. And then finally, if you like any of these topics, and as you could see a little bit, I hope I could show it to you how broad that is. You can work from museums and exhibitions and public exhibitions to writing to patients, to writing to doctors, to writing to physicians. So there is a huge field out there that you can explore. So first of all, I would say for you to reflect on what you have. reflect what are your skills. Like, are you good at writing, communicating, and talking? Are you like introvert or extrovert? What kind of communication you like? What are your talents? What are you good at? We all have unique talents. And what kind of education and practical experience you have. I would say, honestly, that to go into medical writing and health writing, you don't need to have a PhD. Of course, it helps, but you don't need to. You need to be good in research. You need to understand what evidence-based is. You need to understand how reliable information works, and then have some practical experience. But you can also start from scratch. And your unique characteristics, that what makes you who you are, what makes you talk the way you talk. Like me, I'm a sailor, I'm a diver, I like to do that kind of thing, this kind of things, and that also makes me a little bit be the way that I am, or talk the way that I talk. And these things are important when you think about selling yourself out there. And list what you think you do not have. And I say think because that is from practical experience. We often think we don't have, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have that. And actually, sometimes you do have, or it's easy to get. It's like experience or portfolio. If you don't have experience, you don't have published material like I didn't. Okay, I had a couple of peer-reviewed articles and so on, but that is not really where I wanted to go. So I built my own portfolio. I wrote my own portfolio. I wrote different pieces. I hired a writing coach to work with me, and we worked together in building a portfolio, for instance, that it can be done. It doesn't have to be published. You just have to show that you can write. You have to have some knowledge about the field, that you have internet, right? And you have people, and you can ask around and network. That is very important. That is really, really very important. And you have to learn how to do that properly. Then you can always rely on courses and network. I always would recommend writing courses, especially if you're a non-native speaker, on a specific fields, if you're curious on specific niches, or just choose some writing courses. They are always very useful. And networking with the right people, definitely. Ask. That is absolutely true. I use that a lot. But when you do, be precise and straightforward. If you just send a message, like I receive messages sometimes, hi, Taze, I want to find a job at SciComm. How do I do it? This is just such a broad question that I don't have the time to write a text about that, so be straightforward. Listen, I'm that and that. I'm curious about this and this. Do you have any tips? That is helpful. If you're not sure what you do or where to go or where to start, maybe a career coaching could be helpful. I did it in the past. For me, was super helpful. I honestly thought, it's not going to help so much, and it did incredibly. And if you don't have a career coaching option or anything, just try. Literally, just step out there and try. Because you never know what you can come out of it. And bravery is an important thing on anything you do. People admire that, so go for it. And communicate to yourself and others what you want to do and what is your wish. It's incredible the power of how things can change once you voice them to you. It sounds a bit new age, but it's not. It brings things, and saying it to yourself and putting it out there, like on LinkedIn, for example, or Instagram, whatever you use the most, is incredibly helpful. So the basic knowledge I would say that you should have for that is writing skills. You need to know about different types of articles because they change with the tone of voice they use on a blog, on a feature, on a news article, for example. So you need to get a bit of a sense on that. You need to know about grammar and clarity, definitely. You need to know about those things. If you want to be a writer, and if you want to especially like advertise yourself on social media, be absolutely thorough on reviewing what you're writing and make sure it's correct, because you cannot sell yourself as a writer if you don't write it correctly, right? Effective communication, you need to know about that. And we need to know about target audiences. If you're used to write scientific papers like I was. It's more difficult than you think to make it simpler. And you need to know that. Who's your audience? Who are they? What do they do? What are their age? And what do they want to know? That is incredibly important. What do they want to know? You need to know what kind of media you're going to put your content. It's online, it's offline. If it's online, you need to know about search engine optimization. You need to know about readability scores. You need to know about keywords. You need to be aware of that. And that will define your audience, because that will reach out to your audience or not. Online. Offline, also, you need to know how to write that offline. It changes as well. And of course, why you're writing this and why is it important? That must be loud and clear on whatever content you're creating, be that on LinkedIn or be that for a client, be that for your research work. You need to be straightforward and why is it important. That is a way of selling it. The skills that you can have, that you should have, first of all, we must be a good writer and communicator for sure. But these are skills that you develop. If you like it, you develop, you work on it, you become better and better. Writing is practice, I'd say. Really practice, and it gets easier with time. You have to enjoy writing and learning, and I do. For instance, I'm curious about everything, so I love when it comes to a project that is something that is kind of curious to me, that I don't know much, that I need to learn more. I really like it, so that is why also medical writing and science communication, for me, it's really motivating, because I'm always learning something new. You need to be extremely good at project and time management, but that is another skill that you can develop as well. And there are several courses out there to give you some tips on it. Have to be good at interpersonal skills, because you're going to be, if you become a freelancer, you are your own boss. If you work in a company, you work with different people from different fields, and you need to know how to communicate with them. You need to be good at networking, and if you become your own boss, which was my case, you have to learn about marketing, website, business management, content management. And it does sound like a lot, I know, but it's really not. It goes step by step. I'm still a bit overwhelmed with all the business management thing, to be honest, coming from a science background, but it's incredibly nice to learn. So, then transferable skills. Here I listed, for instance, I use this as an example because we think not all experiences will be used to that. And I tell you, every experience will be used to that. I was a flight attendant for 4 years. And then you would say, yeah, but what can she use one thing from being a flight attendant, then to a scientist, and then to a science writer, right? Everything. As a flight attendant, you learn about everything, including conflict management, leadership skills, customer relations, interpersonal skills, team building, multicultural communication, time management, because being a flight attendant is like literally working in the army. You have time for everything, and you need to be disciplined. Even when I think about safety, security, self-defense, survival skills that I had to learn in my time of being a flight attendant, you learn about risk assessment and teamwork and effective communication. You can deal with anything in a very confined space that you have no choices but to deal with that. So these skills are absolutely transferable to whatever I do in my life, and they are valuable. And that's what I say, that sometimes diversing a little bit your CV and trying other things will just add, will never remove. Okay, so I know people think differently, and sometimes people are afraid, but these are things that will make you stand out, bring something else to you. Overall, life and career is an organic process, I like to say. It's not a linear or mechanical process, and they are intertwined. So every experience counts. That's my final message to you, because life happens. So try to deal with that, because literally this was my sketch. That was what I planned. I was going to be a vet. I had everything figured out. I was going to take a break and go back to vet and graduate. And here I am. Nothing of that happened. So just try to navigate through that the best you can, and just try to see that opportunities will bring something that you would never discover if you just stay put. So I think that is very enriching for whatever you choose to do in the future. So basically, life and career is a change, adapt, learn, and repeat. That's my take from my career and from my choices and everything so far. And I hope that this experience could inspire you a little bit to try, if you have something there in the back of your mind, if it's worth it or not. Most of the time, I'll tell you that it is. So just hopefully this was a bit clarifying to you and helpful to you. So I want to thank you now for Bio Battalion for this really nice invitation. And I'm sorry about the technical difficulties we had here. But again, life happens, right? So we had to adapt. And I tried here to give you the best I could out of the information that I have. So thank you very much.
Oh, that is a really, really inspirational story from your side. I mean, I hope the listeners would have really enjoyed it. I mean, you truly are a package of so many things. So one straight away question that came to my mind when I was listening to your story was, since you had lots of good things and at the same time bad things happening in life, since life is not so linear. So I just would like to ask, what was your biggest motivation when things were not falling into your place every time? What,
When things are
yeah,
not going as
falling
I
into your,
planned.
yeah, exactly.
Well, that is the thing. First of all, it's like, I think, okay, what choice do I have? Because getting angry at things not going my way will not change things not going my way, right? They will continue not going my way. I'm just going to be pissed, but they will be not going my way. But what I try to see is like, but what is out there that maybe I didn't do yet, that I can do it and learn and get a new skill on my pocket, right? Get a new technique under my belt. What is there that I can do to adapt to that? It's like jumping on freezing water and like, oh, okay, if I stay here 5 minutes, I get used to it. It's more or less like that, you know? Fighting back only and just trying to stick to a plan that is not working is not always that productive. But I'm also not saying don't just quit, because I never quit being a scientist. I wanted to go back to science and I did whatever I had. There are two types of people that look at my CV, two types of human resources. One that says your CV doesn't show, that you want this. I mean, it doesn't show that you know what you want. And another type of human resources person that says, wow, it really shows that you did whatever you had to do to reach where you are now. And these two people probably had two different lifestyles. The second one had a more lifestyle like me. They can see that CV was like, wow, this person was really creative to be here today applying for this job. Because so try to adapt the way that you can. There's always a way out. I am a bit in the situation right now as well. When I finished my PhD, to be honest, I was back into that place. And just try to be open to what is passing by, because there will be opportunities passing by you and people telling you things that could help you out. It could give you some clarity. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a true story. And we have some questions from our viewers. So I will just mention the questions here. So one by one, I will take the questions. So first question is from Vaishak K. Vishwanath. Just out of curiosity, how could one obtain revenue from science communication?
Yeah, there are several ways. So I would say begin by finding your niche. Okay, that was a tip that I got from a very experienced science writer. And I didn't take it seriously at first, and then I understood what she was saying. Find what you like. So to obtain a revenue, you will only obtain a revenue if you focus on one thing, at least at the beginning. So like, okay, I like writing to patients. Then you develop, how do I write to patients? You learn about that. Then you contact, for instance, patients associations, like, oh, I am specialized, let's say, in immunotherapies. Or then you go to, I don't know, a diabetes association or something, or any autoimmune disease that maybe work with immunotherapies, and you talk to them and say, well, I can write content for you, or just go out there and just start asking people. So if you find a niche that you like, find medical writers or science writers that work on that niche on LinkedIn, for example, and send them a message sometimes and ask them that. How did you start? Where did you start? But the revenue comes mostly from there's so many different sources. Like right now, I'm working with the Institute of Molecular Biology at Porto University. I'm working with reviewing and editing an ebook. they have there for a project on gene editing, for example. I actually did a job interview with them some time ago. I didn't get the job, but I got them a freelance work, which was my favorite. So things like that happens, the revenue you get from contacting people, learning, and putting yourself out there as an expert of what you do, of the niche that you chose, and trying to charge for the service you provide. You have different charges. You charge for articles you write, for reviews you can do, for editing of material. Then you have to know, of course, how the market works. Where you work, do have different quotes. That's basically what I would say. Hopefully that helped a little bit.
Yeah. That's a really comprehensive answer. It's like even though there are lots of revenue generating options, it could be like so challenging out there. The possibilities are challenging. Yeah. And second question. This is from my side. So following up the same question that Vaishak asked. So other than freelancing aside, are there any of the other funding options available for science communication that you're aware of?
Yeah, that is the thing. I know there are. I know Sada also addressed that last time on her talk with you guys. And it's as she said, it's incredibly difficult to get. I am honestly not there. I'm not doing that. I'm going on a different approach completely. Okay, so I'm not developing big projects or anything. What I'm basically doing is pitching and trying to sell articles to websites and so on, and working with healthcare professionals. That's what I like the most, to be honest. I'm working for patients and universities. So I'm not really aware of that. I'm not really the best source of that at all.
Yeah, okay. And there's a second question from Vaishak Vishwanath. So he was asking, how can we extend the audience for science communication? Or in other words, how can we effectively share the content to general audience or people from non-science background?
Yeah, that is a very important question, because I honestly am very passionate about that topic. Mostly is that we get so, when we work in research and universities, we get so used to the language we use that we forget that actually people do not understand, they do not speak that language. It's a different language. Science has a different language than even a different way of communicating. So you have to learn about that. You have to go to your dad or to your brother who is not a scientist and tell them what you do. And until they don't understand, it means that you don't explain yourself right. If they don't understand what you're saying to them, it means that you are not able to communicate that. So in order for us to learn how to communicate to people from non-science background, we need to talk to them and try to make ourselves understood. No use of jargon, scientific, like a specific language. If you have to use that, explain. Be very simple, as if you were explaining to a kid. I'm writing a book now on genetic engineering, and I'm thinking, God, how do I explain that to a 16-year-old? And I literally have to write as I'm writing to a 16-year-old. If I talk about nucleotide, I put there, nucleotide is this is the building blocks of blah, 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 and it's that. You really need to talk like that. And it's important that. And I think we need to do that more often, via blogs and via any source of media that we have. We need to do that more often and learn about that more often. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Another question is from Sankita Espile. Even though we put a lot of work enhancing science communication, don't you think language is a barrier, especially when you want to bring it to the common folks? I guess you answered that question right now.
It's honestly the language of science is English, right? I would say that the advantage is that most of us are no native speakers. That's an advantage. That's not a loss. Because by being no native speaker, you tend to use simpler language. But what we happens often is that we tend to then copy and use a format of how other papers are written and write it the same way, which is often not good because we are using language that other people are using that are not good already. And that's why the readability of scientific articles is decreasing instead of increasing. What we need to do is simplify. We know when we learn English how simple we had to do things. For me, at least, I'm a no-native speaker. Okay, I'm a Portuguese native speaker, so I had to learn from a simple way, and I try to use to maintain a simple English. We're not don't go like very how to say complex. We don't have to do that. It's an advantage to be a non-native speaker. So keep it simple. Keep the language simple. So I think it is not a barrier. I think it is the advantage, honestly.
Because most of the people do think it the other way, because since being a non-native speaker always has our own limitation. That's
Exactly.
the common, that's a common term, common concept that I have heard of. And do you have something to say about, because recently there are so many articles that I happen to read, like even though in our scientific publications as well, we have a problem of incorporating so many acronyms. It's like it becomes even tough for the people in the same field to understand. Like each and every day, there are new acronyms coming out.
Oh God! I mean, I was reading a paper the other day. Seriously, I had to start writing the acronyms on a paper size so I could continue reading it, because even for B cell they put BC. You know, to the point of like we get to do that, and I don't know why. And this is also, if you read that paper I told you about readability, they will see that they are mentioning this problem there. It's okay to repeat words if they're a technical word. It's okay. It's not going to look that horrible on your text. Repeat it. That's fine. But using acronyms, it's making everything worse. And that, if you write in science for lay people, for general public, acronyms are forbidden. You know, of course, common acronyms like RNA and DNA, fine. But creating acronyms out of all this stuff, no. If you have to write a whole thing, write a whole thing. Every time, write a whole thing. Like NK cell, people are putting NKC. And I was like, come on, it's just cell. I mean, you can do that, you know? I mean, and I can read it without, what was NKC again? Was it a band? Is it a new pop song or something? No. So let's try and avoid that whenever we can. That's the way to go.
Yeah, one more thing that came to my attention lately was, there was a paper two years back. There was a paper like it's a scientific paper. So the title of the paper looked very fancy. It was like Fantastic East and Where to, I don't remember, Fantastic East. So essentially, are there any kind of rule of thumb that we have to follow while we are constructing a manuscript, in terms of how the title of the paper should be, or something like that? I mean,
it depends a lot to which journal you're writing, okay, and the editor that you're writing for. I would say that, for instance, journals that have editors as native speakers, or are journals from English native speaker countries, they are more open to simple language, especially, and a bit of storytelling. And I say this like, think of your project, think of your research when you're writing as a storytelling. Where did the idea arise? Why is the question asked to begin with? We all have that. And instead of following such a square, like making such a complicated introduction and going, this paper aims to, okay, of course, have to put the aim. But we can always try to write that in a bit like telling a story to whoever is reading that. We can do that. You know, we can say, well, the idea started from blah, 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 because the disease, because we observed, and then. So you can make a bit of a story. Avoid acronyms, always. Avoid jargon. You don't need jargon. You don't need to make it sound complicated. You already publishing a paper in a scientific peer-reviewed journal. Everybody knows you're smart. You know, that's my point. I always say, people, we know you're smart. Just make it simple. You know, it's as if in academia we are trying to speak complicated, because if we make it easy, we don't sound smart enough. And I think that is the problem where we see now of this disconnection, that people don't understand what we say. Of course they don't. I mean, I barely understand sometimes professors giving a lecture, you know, if there is not in my field, or if there is too much jargon. So try to make it simple. Grammar, absolutely. Always check for the grammar. That's very important. Make it concise. Make it flow. Like one idea connects to the next. You know, it's not like lost paragraphs, but one thing connects to the next always. And that tells a story. But literally, I really think, and yeah, they do, of course, depends on the editor, as I say, but I've seen interviews with editors that say, I love when people are a bit creative on their title, that the title says something like Fantastic East or something like this. I see many editors like that, because it really attracts attention. So I think dare a little bit more. You should dare, definitely, to make a good storytelling out of your paper. And I think that's doable. Yeah.
And if audience have more questions, they are free to post it in the comment section. We will moderate it one by one. And there's one question from Kannan. Do you think bringing science communication into the curriculum would empower scientists to be better communicators of their science? And if you believe that is true, how to go ahead with it?
No doubt about it. To be honest, I wish I could start a movement of like science communications obligatory on every PhD program and every Master of Science program, because I do see a lack, not only for science communication to the public, but also among ourselves. How many presentations have you been of other students or PhD students that you do not really understand very well, that the slides are not well designed, that the images are bad, that the results are badly presented? I mean, it's a common thing even among scientists, we don't have to even go outside. So it is, I think, something we all give very little value to. In the US, they value that a lot more. So it's common for you to go to conferences, and when you have American people talking, they are incredibly engaging. Everybody's engaged in what they're saying, the way they're speaking, the way they're presenting, because they are taught that in a few universities there. So I do think that science communication should become courses. And to implement that, I do think that should have workshops and courses available for PhD students and for Master of Science students, and even for bachelor's students as introductory course. The importance of science communication, the role of science communication with the society, and the importance of communicating what you do to the society. What are the implications? How can we influence the world by communicating what we do properly and simply? I think that should be the way to go. Start with education.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think there are any more questions. So if you have any questions, our live will be on for 1 more minute. So if people have more questions, they can put it in here. We will moderate it now. So we will meet for a few more seconds to see if other questions are there or not.
Yeah.
So meantime, if somebody hasn't subscribed to the channel, they can subscribe it, because it will help you get the notifications instantly whenever we go live. And yeah, so I guess that's it. We don't have any more questions, so we can end the live. Now we will see in the back end. Please.
Okay.
So I'm ending the live.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.